Welcome to Talking Cybersecurity with HMS Industrial Networks. Hi, my name is Jason Block with HMS Industrial Networks. I am the Solutions Manager for our Industrial Internet of Things products, and today we're going to be discussing addressing factory security with standards. So when we're talking about standards, we're talking about organizations and certifications that are put together to help define best practices for focusing on security at various different levels. Today we're going to focus on a couple of different security standards. The first one is going to be ISO 27001, and the other one is going to be IEC 62443. And these focus on security from a couple of different perspectives. So if we look at ISO 27001, ISO 27001 focuses very heavily on data security. So in terms of data security, the focus there is to create specific objectives about how we protect security. And those objectives really are to focus on things like confidentiality. And with confidentiality, we want to make sure that only the people who need to access the data can access that data. Also, you want to focus on integrity with these practices. With integrity, you want to make sure that only authorized people can actually change the data. So the people who are authorized the data are the only ones who will be able to change the data. And then lastly, availability. Availability means is that we want people who are actually authorized to access the data to be able to access that data. So we want it available to them when they need it. So in order to handle these objectives in terms of confidential integrity and availability, ISO 27001 focuses on a process for doing this. And that basically is to create a series of definitions and then basically some processes and procedures behind that. So part of that process is to define all the stakeholders, who are everyone who's going to be involved with securitizing data, creating an information security management system. Define those stakeholders. You also want to define what the inherent risks in the system are and where those are. And then ultimately what you want to do is you want to define controls that are around towards helping mitigate issues with risks. And also all of the data security mechanisms that are in there. So defining those controls, defining those safeguards for the data that's in the system is a critical piece of this. And then obviously understanding a clear set of objectives that you want to come out of it with defining a information security management system and a process for doing this. Oftentimes circling back to these three core objectives that are part of the ISO 27001 standard. And then ultimately what it is from there is the key thing is that once you've defined things, it's a case of basically acting on those definitions. And that is to basically is a process for implementing that. Who is responsible for implementing those controls? Measuring, keeping track of how these things are doing. So things along penetration testing, these type of things. How is the security system behaving? And then ultimately improving. So if we find security flaws or we need to patch things, what is the process for basically making the changes that are necessary to make that system even more secure than it is today? So this is ISO 27001, once again focusing on the security aspects of it. The other process I want to talk a little bit about today is IEC 62443. And IEC 62443 is focused very much on Industrial Automation Control System Security, or IACS. And with IEC 62443, that has a different set of standards that is focused on that. And it focuses different parts of the overall industrial automation system. So part one is more of the general overview on what the specifications around. So this defines the terminology, concepts, models, how defense in depth pertains to industrial automation control systems, these type of things there, and the different models behind that. Part two is focusing more on the policies and the procedures behind that. So creation of a security program, how you manage patches to devices, and then security program requirements that are a key part of that. So establishing the program, what are the requirements for that program, and then also how do we manage how we upgrade and patch systems that are out there. So creating the functional infrastructure for handling these things. And then part three and part four focus on system and components. So system is focused very much on the overall industrial automation control system. So think something like a machine, something along those lines. And it focuses on the technologies that are a necessary part of a secure system, how to do risk assessment on these systems as well. and then the system, and then defining what the system security requirements and levels are. So different parts of the system may have different levels of security requirement than other things on there. Part of IEC 62443 is the understanding that not every system is it possible to secure every component in there to the same level of hardening. And then part 4, as I was mentioned, focuses on components requirements around that. And that's more around people who supply components to machinery or systems. So this could be your PLC providers, this could be your providers of instrumentation, I/O, communication devices, much as like what HMS does. So this aspect is basically your focus more around product development. So what is the secure way of managing your product development life cycle? And then what are the technical security requirements for creating a secure product? It could be things like, in terms of communication, secure stacks. It could be secure elements that are used on products, these type of things. So this is kind of a quick overview on ISO 27001 and IEC 62443. Both of these are important pieces of securing the factory going forward, both for the data and the industrial automation control systems that exist on those factory floors. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you can get a lot out of this, and thank you for attending.